how do we change the way commenting on articles work? And you're thinking, why might I want to do that? Well, let's have a look at something right here. I want to point something out to you. Let's go ahead and click on the Japanese tour tickets now on sale article. And let's scroll down here and we'll notice that, yeah, there's a thing you can add a new comment. And because I'm logged in, it knows that my name is Robo Bunny Attack. And it's asking me for a subject line, and then I get to add my comment down there. And that's cool. Okay, I can go ahead and do that. But what if I didn't want to force people to enter a subject line? Well, we don't actually force them. There's no red asterisk. But like it seems kind of weird to me that we're asking people to, you know, create a subject line for their comment. I mean, I think that, maybe, 10 years ago that used to be the way commenting worked, but most of the places I go to when I comment on a website, I'm not asked to come up with a subject, right? A subject line. It's not like I'm writing an article or anything. I'm just commenting. I kind of think of it a little bit more like Facebook commenting, where you're just sort of adding a little comment. So let's say I wanted to tweak this, okay, so that I'm not asking people for a subject line. I'd like to just remove that altogether, okay? How would I go about doing that? And yeah, you can do this, by the way. And this is the beauty of something like Drupal. You actually have that level of control over everything in your site. So this is where I'm going to introduce to you my favorite menu, my favorite section in Drupal, which is called Structure. Structure is where all the cool stuff happens. We haven't really spent much time here. We haven't spent any time here yet, but structure is really when you're building a site and you're tweaking it, you're really probably going to spend most of your time in structure. So if you're ever looking for something, one of the first place, like a certain functionality on your Drupal site, first place you should probably check is structure, because that's where all the cool stuff is. So what I'm going to do here, and this is, I'm going to show you something pretty neat. We haven't really explored this yet. We'll talk about it and we'll spend a lot more time here in the future. But I'm going to go ahead and click on content types. And here we see our two basic content types. This looks familiar, okay? Articles and basic pages. But I want you to understand where we're gonna go to just add content. Okay. Up until now, we've just been using the article and basic page content types to just add new content to our site. This is where we get to change the blueprint for content such as articles and basic pages, okay? Because Drupal has a blueprint for how it publishes things. And when I make changes here, okay, this is going to be universal for all the content I add from that point forward. And sometimes even it goes back and applies it retroactively too. So think about that. When you're talking about editing content types, you're talking about editing the blueprint. Okay? Whereas when you're talking about editing just a piece of content, that's just making changes to that one particular content. Okay? So think of it like construction, like houses, building houses. Okay? You can, let's say you wanted, a bigger kitchen. There's two ways of going about that. You can alter the blueprint for your house prior to it being built. You could change the blueprint so that all houses from now on have a bigger kitchen. Or if your house is already built, okay, and you only want to make your kitchen bigger and not like the entire neighborhood's or the entire subdivision's kitchens bigger, then you would just go in and just change the content itself, edit the content, your specific piece of content. You can edit that particular content. You would just go in and just do a renovation in your house. That's all, okay? So to use that analogy if it helps, think about like specific renovations to your house, okay? That's like editing the content. And editing the content type is like making changes to the master blueprint for all the houses that are built like yours. Okay? So, what do we want to do here? We want to adjust the settings for articles. So let's go, see where it says articles. Let's click on edit and let's see what we have here. And this next page is going to be interesting, okay? There's a whole bunch of comments here. Don't be intimidated by this. We're going to go through everything in detail. It's all going to make sense. But we see a bunch of things. We see the name. We can even change the name of this. This doesn't have to be article. It could be, if you wanted to call it news item, you could change it to news item if we wanted to. You can even change the description of what you would use articles for. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this in a new tab to show you. See this right here? Use articles for time-sensitive content like news. You can edit that right in here. And if you're familiar with HTML, you'll notice that there's a little emphasis tag being used here to make this in italics. And this is, by the way, knowing a little bit of HTML goes a long way. But that's a topic for a completely different screencast. Okay, down here we have, this looks familiar. Okay, these options down here, but these are slightly different because remember we are working on the blueprint for all pieces of content that will be published or that have been published. Okay, um, all articles, okay? And we want to change, in this case, the question was how do we adjust the settings for the default settings for commenting. So let's go ahead and go down here and click on comment settings. And here we have a bunch of options. We have default comment setting for new content. And you've got three options. You could have open, closed, or hidden. Difference between these, open just means that your content is open for commenting. Closed means that you're no longer allowing commenting, but any comments that have appeared up until now will still are still there. Okay, they're still visible. And hidden means you get rid of commenting altogether. Like there's no comments that appear on this piece of content. Nobody can comment at all. Okay, threading, that just has to do with how the comments actually show up on your page. We won't worry too much about that. Number of comments per page, the default is 50. You can change that to whatever you want. And if it goes beyond that, Drupal just creates sort of a pagination thing. Here we go. Allow comment title. Okay, that is that subject line. Let's, in fact, in a different browser here, I'm just going to, or not different browser, a different tab. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. And we scroll down here and we'll see the subject line. The subject line is what they're talking about when it comes to the comment title. What if we disallowed that? Okay, what if we did not allow that? And then what if we went ahead and clicked Save Content Type? Okay, so I've edited the blueprint. Okay, I've actually edited the blueprint for this. And it tells us, Drupal tells us, yep, content type article has been updated. Well, okay, let's see how this works. I'm going to reload this, and let's see if this has made a difference. Ha! Look at that. Now, when we add a new content, see, it changed the blueprint for for all articles. Let's go check it. Let's go check the other articles and see if it's actually changed. I'm going to go to Tour Diary Update. And there we go. So now people can just comment. They just have their name and they just put their comment and they don't have to be bothered putting a subject line. And I like the way commenting works that way. You don't have to do this, but I was using this as an example to demonstrate to you how you can control all aspects of your Drupal site, including, such a fine detail as whether or not you want to ask people to enter subject lines for your comments. And this was a good introduction to the idea of editing content types too, and getting used to thinking about content types as like your blueprint for creating content from this point forward, okay? All right, so now you know how to do that, to edit, to adjust the settings for articles, okay, so that by default commenters are not asked to enter a title for their comment. You would go where? You would go to structure, because remember, that's where all the fun stuff is. You would go to content types, and then you would go ahead and edit. You click on the edit button for article, and you would scroll down to edit the comment settings for the article content type. You would just disallow comment title. That's it. That was a lot, but that's very important to know. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.